Welcome, everybody. We are back with chapter 1159, titled The Island of Destiny. And I got to just say, this chapter is one of those chapters that as you're reading it, your just mind is exploding a few different times. And it's just one of those chapters that really reminds me why I love One Piece so much and why I think so many other people do. Because Oda lays out these breadcrumbs along the way through this massive intertwined story. And when we get those real tangible pieces that he set up so long ago, it just feels, the payoff feels amazing. It starts like we're getting this puzzle piece put together, and I just loved it. It's a fantastic chapter. And this flashback in itself has been an incredible experience. And I feel like it's just getting closer to its full culmination. So I'm not going to sit here and prattle on forever about how great this chapter is, because I'm sure you guys know how it was. So let's just jump right into it. The chapter opens up back on Hachinosu, and sure enough, we've got Don Marlin was taken out. The guards that were there were taken out. They're talking about that they couldn't protect her. Like, who did this? And it revealed that Shaki has been kidnapped from Hachinosu. And we know from 1157, when she had originally landed on Pirate Island and she set up her bar, that in that chapter, I believe there was a narration saying that all treasures are basically fated to be stolen. So clearly this is what it was referring to, very ominous. I thought that initially it might have been talking about Rayleigh, finally coming and claiming her. But no, it was actually the world government that took her. And we have Rox, Whitebeard, everybody from the Rox Pirates. We have Gloriosa bawling her eyes out. Shaki is someone who, that was when she was a pirate, that was her first mate. Someone that clearly she probably had known for her entire life, and now had her back on Pirate Island. And so they were in close vicinity with each other, probably getting to spend a lot more time together again. So Gloriosa is just bawling, rightfully so. But then we have a panel of Ochoku, and he's got the twinkly stars. He's counting his money. He's got literally a forked snake tongue. So it's obviously revealed right here that Ochoku basically set up, he's a traitor. Like, he's a traitor. He struck a deal with the government to probably either set Don Marlin up, because we know he was on guard duty. So Ochoku got his bag. Clearly we already know that the Rox Pirates as a group, not a very cohesive unit. They don't have the same values, but they were at least aligned enough to where they weren't backstabbing each other. But this is just a very, very clear betrayal on Ochoku's part, but he just wanted to get his money. So he just looks ridiculous. The forked tongue is very fitting, just like a snake. But then we know that Shaki she's gone now. The pirates are absolutely in distraught because Shaki was beloved by all of the pirates, and not even just the pirates. It seems like the entire world was fixated and fascinated with her, similar to Boa. Shaki seems to be basically the Boa of her generation. We transition from Hachinosu. We've got Roger. He is pissed. He's ripping the newspaper in half that I'm sure literally just told him that Shaki was kidnapped. He is talking, basically like, Rox, how could you let this happen? Like, he's going to beat him the next time he sees him. World word obviously starts spreading across the entire world. We get a scene of Rayleigh looking concerned, reading the paper. We know, obviously, he does care for Shockey. So I'm sure, he's keeping it cool on the outside, but I'm sure on the inside, he is genuinely worried. And this part was just crazy to me because it said the people sank into a deep despair and the world's economy ground to a halt for several weeks. Several weeks. Like, think about that a little bit. It's not like even just like a day or two, several weeks that the world economy came to a halt. Like, she was a worldwide idol, basically. And now with her kidnapping, people shut down in like depression. So it's just crazy how much influence Shockey truly had. So, I mean, I got to give Rayleigh his props because out of this entire world with who knows how many people are even in the One Piece world because it's ginormous, he's the one that got her, she picked him. And we know at the end of the day that they do end up together. So it's obviously a terrible situation. I feel terrible for Shockey, but it's just crazy to see the impact on the rest of the world. However, there we move from, kind of seeing the world's reaction to Shockey's kidnapping to cutting to God Valley 1 year later. We're back in the West Blue, and we have Shanks and Shamrock's mother greeting Garling. Garling has returned. He is there clearly for the rabbit hunting festivities on God Valley. She is absolutely none the wiser to why he is there. She thinks, she's like, oh, I always knew you'd come back, like talking to the boys and saying, this is your father. Like, you should, like, why don't you stay here with me and the kids? And even Garling, he's just putting on this, it's like this very patronizing, well, it's like he doesn't even see their mother as a human, basically. And that's, we already know that the Tenryubito are like that, especially someone of Garling's stature, being a part of the Holy Knights and being clearly one of the most powerful ones of the group. But we get to see a cute little picture of Shanks and Shamrock just being all happy. And then Garling says, well, if we were to share a home together, it certainly wouldn't be here. And he just casually throws in, well, this island won't be around much longer. And she's just like, huh? Like, what did you just, basically, what did you just say? Because he just comes right out and says it. He has no shame. Why would he? Like I said, he doesn't even view these people, the people unaffiliated with the world government, he doesn't even view them as humans. So he's like, and besides the point of us not living here on God Valley, clearly we would go back to the Holy Land. He doesn't say that, but that's what he's thinking. Like, I wouldn't live down here in the lower world. But he talks about that he's already secured himself a worthy bride and placed the order. Like, absolutely absurd. It reminds me, obviously, of Charlos and Roswald, and I, for some reason, cannot remember the sisters, the sister's name. I mean, they're all terrible. I don't even really want to remember their names. I just do. But it's like when they're placing the orders at the auction. But this one's like a pre-order. It's like when a video game is coming out and you like put in your pre-order of like, yep, I'm going to get that. But it's for a wife. Like, it's for Shockey. And he's like, well, as long as I win this tourney, like, I will have her. And then you have Shanks's mom saying tourney ? And then literally in the next panel, we've got Garling stabbing her. Just absolutely despicable. Their behavior, we already know how the Celestial Dragons are, but every time I see it, Oda is just reinforcing the fact that these people they're not human, because no real human would treat people of the same species that way. And it kind of harkens back to when Harold, a few chapters ago, attacked that government ship because of how they were treating that nation of people that had helped Elbaf during the famine. And he's like, you guys are not humans. And that is just the crux of the whole situation with the Tenryubito. And we have Garland, after seemingly taking out Shanks and Shamrock's mother, but we know that he didn't actually finish the job. We'll talk about that later. But he talks about beginning the preparations. We see all the Marines showing up, making landfall, talking about how they got their tranquilizer rounds. If they don't resist, then just capture them. We have the residents of God Valley, like, why are all these Navy ships here? And like, get the children's inside. They must be searching for, some terrible criminal here. Little do they know that they are just about to be a part of this absolutely appalling game of sport for the Tenryubito. And this is where we get to see a young Marine questioning his superior about what the goal of this operation is. And they're, of course, they're like, why are you even questioning orders? Just shut up, listen, do it. And we see the armband with the design. And sure enough, we have Monkey D. Dragon as a Marine. We got him as a fledgling Marine. He's being told to capture these civilians. He's obviously in great turmoil over it. He is questioning it. Why are we they're just ordinary civilians? His superiors just keep yelling at him to not question it. Like, you can't have personal doubts. In the military, you follow orders. And that this is clearly the beginning. If it hadn't already been starting prior to this God Valley is the beginning of Dragon's realization that the organization of the world government is not there for the greater good of the people of the world. They are there to follow orders. They are there to dish out orders to the Marines, and the Marines are simply there to follow the orders. Now, we know that we have certain Marines, like his father, Garp, who is aware of the darkness that lords over the Marines, but he believes that he can overturn that corrupt system from within. So don't necessarily tear it all down, but to come in from the inside and change it. And that is just an astronomical task, honestly. It might be one of the hardest actual goals in the series, including like Pirate King. It's just absurd because there's so many people in the government, in the Marines, that simply are just going to follow orders because the world government is the ultimate power. They determine what is good and what is bad. And don't be a free thinker. And it's like in our actual world where you're just not supposed to question anything. That's why we just have people running around shouting at each other, shouting right past each other, not having actual discussions. It's because they've basically just been infected by these mind viruses that completely stop them from thinking for themselves or questioning things, or do I even believe this? And that's what's happening in this chapter to Dragon. He is questioning it. He is still an independent thinker, and he is there for the greater good of the civilians. So he's like, I can't, this is absurd. He ends up, he's trying to reconcile it. He's trying to understand it. And he ends up, shooting a couple of them with the tranquilizer rounds. And he's like, well, it won't actually kill them. But then we have sleeping gas bombs going off, and Dragon's just looking around at this. You can just see the look of shock and horror on his face. And I me and my cousin, who also reads One Piece weekly, we've had the running theory, and I think in the community for sure, this has been a running theory for a long time, that Dragon was a part of the Marines initially and witnessed the horrors of having to follow the orders of the world government, and finding out who is dictating those orders is the Tenryubito. And that ultimately the Marines, while on a grand scale, on a daily basis, the Marines are helping people. Harold even said that a few chapters ago, and it is true. That's the sad part, is that there's tons of good Marines doing great things every day. But there are situations like this going on in the background, not being discussed or talked about, that are atrocious, that would immediately remove the trust that the general populace has in the world government if they were aware of it. But they never are, because the government controls the information. We leave Dragon, we transfer away from him, and we cut to a Navy prison ship that is transporting slaves to God Valley. We get to see Ginny is sneaking around, because we know back during the Kuma flashback, she talks about the fact that she leaked information about what was happening on God Valley to attract pirates and whoever to create chaos so they could escape. And this is actually showing us what she did. She snuck around that ship without anybody noticing her and leaked that info. So Ginny is just, super courageous. She's just a little girl and clearly very intelligent. And this sparked a massive incident that actually shaped and changed the trajectory of the One Piece world. Because if this info doesn't get leaked, then the government and the Tenryubito, they just go about their hunting expedition. No one knows about it. Rox wouldn't have found out to make his move, which we'll talk about shortly. So it's just Ginny and Ivankov having this plan to hatch and get themselves out of here ended up literally changing the whole trajectory of the narrative of this, of the plot of the story. So kudos to them. They are just hyped that they pulled it off successfully. Then you have, of course, the other slaves that are like, hey, you guys need to not be too rash. You're going to get all of us punished. And you have Ivankov just going off on these people, talking about like miracles are not easy to come by. You have to try if you want to be saved. And he's right. You can't just sit there meekly in hope that some miracle is going to happen. You have to actively be moving towards it in order for the miracle to appear. So it's really cool to see their spirit. It just hasn't been broken through their horrid experience of being slaves. And we get to see, of course, a young Kuma also on the ship, and he, cracks a little smile because he's like, they're still slaves with spirit. Like that, it's good. He seems to enjoy seeing that it's not just broken down people who have given up all hope. Because we know Kuma himself, even through the absolute tragedy of his past to this point, he still is believing in, the sun god, in Nika, the warrior of liberation, who's going to come and free them. So he has some hope. It may not be as outwardly and action-oriented as Ginny and Ivankov, but he still recognizes that in them and he appreciates it. Next, we kind of leave the ship with the transportation of the slaves that are heading to God Valley, and we get to see a Cypherpole Agents Bureau, with Intelligence Bureau, which is, I believe, maybe the first time we've seen like an independent base for Cypherpole out in the One Piece world. And we have them talking, and we get to see a young Morgans just straight up hustling the world government's intelligence bureau. He's like, because they're like, what do you got this time? Like, what's the absurd intel? And he he has clearly done this multiple times already at this point, because he's like, don't be coy, guys. Like, let's not play this little game back and forth. Let's just get right to the part where you guys pay me off, because you want to keep this silent, because you've caught wind of the transmission that got leaked. So that's obviously the leak of the transmission from Ginny. And these government dudes are just shocked, obviously, because they're like, this kid is just running a newspaper, but he keeps getting like the juiciest intel. And they clearly have to keep paying him off so that he does not release it. And even one of them talks about like, don't push your luck. Like, you'll be erased. And he's like, just, I got to give it to Morgans. He's right in the face of the world government saying, just try and stop me. He literally is like, I want the smoke, because Morgans he's this proprietor of stirring the people, whether it's using fake information or the truth. It's just whatever he thinks is going to result in the largest amount of emotions and response from the world. He knows how to play on people's, hearts and try to get them to move, whether it's in anger or fear or disgust or whatever it may be. He's been like this since a kid. But so I got to give him, though, he stands up to it. And he's thinking to himself, basically, even if you guys are going to pay me off, I'm still going to leak this news to Pirate Island anyways. Because in his head, he's like, okay, I won't put it out to the general populace. You guys are going to give me a fat check, but then I'm going to leak it to Pirate Island, because then they're going to get involved. And I know that is going to lead to a situation that is even juicier in news. And it's either going to be a repeat of, now you guys got to pay me an even bigger check to be silent about the God Valley incident, or I'll release this to the public and it's going to be absolutely world-shaking news. So he's just, I got to give him respect. He's hustling. He's controlling the narrative, and big news. He's never changed, even since apparently a little kid bird thing. So we move on from Morgans and the Cipher Pole Bureau, and we're back to Pirate Island. They get the news that Shockey is alive and she is on God Valley. And then we get to see Ochoku in this absurd panel where Oda does like the like triple, quadruple chin, like, and they're like, he's sweating and he's like, this smells fishy. Like, can we trust the source? And clearly he's reacting this way because he is the one that sold out Shockey for his bag. He tried to get his money, and now he's going to be the first one to be like, whoa, guys, I don't know if we can trust this information. This is pretty fishy. And they just completely ignore him. Stussy's like, no, there's no doubt about it. The Navy is in turmoil over this leak of information, meaning it is true, because now everybody knows about the location of where the celestial dragons currently are. So that's a big thing, a big problem for the government and the Navy. And they're just talking about how she's going to be a prize, like it's the government that kidnapped her. And Whitebeard talks about the celestial dragons, their human hunt. And he's saying that he always thought it was just like a baseless rumor. But now clearly he's like realizing, oh gosh, this is actually true. This is real. Then we get to see Lin Lin and Kaido. And she's like, looks like they're putting up devil fruits for grabs. Like, didn't you want one, Kaido? And he just asks her, like, what do these ones do? He's literally just like, he is relying on Lin Lin to supply him with the information, because we know he's been thinking about getting a devil fruit. But even back, Whitebeard had said, like, be careful which one you choose, because you're stuck with it for the remainder of your life. So, like, be careful which one you want. So he's like being very selective. So he's like, what do these ones do? And Big Mom, with her intelligence network, she's able to get all the deets. And we know all the way back when we go to Wano, she talks about the fact that he owes her. And clearly he does owe her, because she gets the dragon fruit from Ivankov on God Valley, and she has it. And she even says in this chapter, like, these fruits could be perfect for my kids, because she's obviously like, yeah, I'll just stock my roster of kids with great devil fruits. And she still had the dragon fruit, and she elected not to actually give that to anybody, but to give it to Kaido. And I'm assuming that she did it for the purpose of knowing later on that she could hold it over his head. And she ultimately does do that during Wano. So it's just cool to see this little full circle come around. And Rox is just basically like, yeah, we're going. Strussen's like, well, what if it's a trap? And he's like, well, if you got cold feet, like, you guys can just stay here. Let's move. God Valley awaits. They are obviously going to be heading out. We get a quick cut to the Roger pirates. He's like, Gabon, like, where is God Valley? And Scopper is like, well, it's pretty far, but like, we should make it in time. So he's like, you guys with, like, Roger's like, you with me, fellas? And everyone's like, of course we are. And Rayleigh's front and center there, like, yeah, he's got to go get his woman. I would actually love this to be when Rayleigh actually, like, claims Shaki. Not claims like an item, but like, we knew she'd left that note for him in the other chapter saying, like, come make me yours if you want me. So I'm hoping during God Valley, maybe after the fighting is done, or at some point, Rayleigh steps in to save Shaki, and that's him, like, making her his. I don't know. That's just like my little headcanon for their ship coming into God Valley. But we get to just see the Roger, then we get to see the scene with Garp back when he's like getting the info that Roger is going to God Valley, and he's like, well, lead with that. Like, I lead with that. Like, I'm on my way. And we get an awesome narration of the unlikely turn of events, but this small leak led to the mobilization of all the toughest men on the seas. And that's what I was talking about back on the Ginny and Ivankov section of the chapter, is that literally this small leak of information moved the biggest players of the time all at once. So it really was just a world-changing small leak. And I love it. I do. I love it so much. And we continue on, and we've got the Rocks Pirates, but we've got a giant, literally a giant's ship pulling up to them right in their way. And Rox says, like, wait. But it's Harold. Harold has showed up to intercept Rox. He talks about the fact that he knew that he could intercept them there because his entire crew is obsessed with this woman. So he knew where he could cut him off. And he talks about the fact that, if we fought without any regard for their own lives, they could sink their puny ship with ease. And I don't agree. I'm sorry, Harold. Like, I know Harold himself, extremely powerful. And there are probably some other giants on that ship that are also very competent. But the Rocks Pirates are so stacked that even if Harold and Rocks are keeping each other busy, you have literally Whitebeard, Linlin, Kaido, and Shiki. There's absolutely no way that the giants are sinking the ship. It's just not going to happen. But, Harold's got the confidence. I'll give it to him. But he points out the fact that there's a vessel off in the distance that's a government surveillance ship. So clearly the government is still trying to keep Harold true to his offer and seeing if he will actually follow through with the potential application into the government by completing this task. And Rox just goes in on him, same as the chapter that they, had their falling out, where he's talking about being the government's lapdog. You're still trying to curry favor with them. Like, you're underestimating us. And he's just questioning him, like, hey, are you really content allowing the government to just sit back and you're just going to do all the dirty work for them? Like, you're just clinging to a diluted version of progress, because ultimately yes, Harold is acting with the hope of improving the lives of his people. It is noble, but we know how we are aware of everything of how the government operates in One Piece. And we know that even if they get to bring the giants into the fold, which is ultimately what Harold wants, they will definitely take advantage of the military might of Elbaf, which will in turn basically result in their children's just ultimately being lined up to go straight into military service for the world government and not have freedom of choice over their path in life just because they are a giant. And that would not be the future that Harold would want for his people. But he can't see it right now because it's just it's such a tough situation. But it really is Brox, I think, is right. And it's a diluted version of progress, because it's going to lead down a path ultimately that is further away from what Harold is seeking. So it is diluted. But Rox offers to, how about the two of us just have a talk? Like, let's have a chat. So they do. They pour, Harold has his ginormous mug that's basically bigger than Rox himself, but he pours him a sake cup. They are still, they have a relationship there, and they used to be friends. So it's a very cool moment. It reminds me a little bit of when we had during the Roger flashback, where Roger ends up asking to bring Odin onto his crew from Whitebeard, and them just sitting there under the trees, drinking sake together, having a genuine discussion about the future and not being at each other's necks. So this reminds me of that. But Rox goes on to say that this information is only for Harold's ears. Like, he's not even going to tell his own crew. And he says that he has a hidden name. And when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this about to be? Like, what are we about to get? And he reveals the fact that his real name, his hidden name, is Davy D. Zebek. I'm just like, when I read that, I was like, what is this chapter? What are we talking about? His name is Davy D. Zebek. It's not Rox. That was used by the government to, kind of keep the Davy name erased from history. We know when Rox showed up at the flower room in Pangea Castle, it had said that he was a worshiper of Davy Jones. And this just gives a whole new meaning to that whole statement, and why he acquired his whole crew through like Davy bag fights. It's just, he is actually a member of the Davy clan, the same clan that Davy Jones was in, a part of. He talks about that he's tied to the lineage of the legendary pirate Davy D. Jones. So it's not just Davy Jones, it's literally Davy D. Jones. All these like famous pirate, like in mythologies of like our actual world. And I love this. I absolutely adore this, because this just has massive implications, because we know obviously now of Blackbeard, who we also get to see in this chapter. That means not only was he not Marshall D. Teach, well, that would be his mother's name, but then it was, oh no, it's actually Rox D. Teach. But no, now it's actually Davy D Teach. Like it's crazy. It's so crazy. So he goes on to talk about that. Rox is like, well, I'm not sure if it was good or bad timing, but 2 years ago I had a kid. I wanted to keep him and his mother safe, so I sent them back to my hometown, and told them to count on the Davy clan. So sending them back to their home, his home, which was where the Davy clan resides, which we don't know of. And he talks about, or Harold talks about, like, okay, you sent your kid and your wife back to your hometown. Like, why are you revealing your weak spot to me right now? And Rox says that his hometown is God Valley. His hometown is God Valley. So he sent Teach and his wife back to God Valley, where the Davy clan resides, for safekeeping, for them to stay safe. And that is where this whole situation is occurring with the Tenryubito. And it just, my mind, even right now, is just racing, because it's like, okay, well, we also know that Shanks and Shamrock are also native to God Valley. And we don't know their mother's name. We have no idea what their mother's name is. And so it's like, is there potential that not only is Teach a member of the Davy clan, but Shanks? Are we talking about like Shanks potentially is one of the Davy clan? And they might not be. It doesn't mean that like every resident of God Valley is immediately a part of the Davy clan. Clearly that's like not what would happen. But that doesn't mean that in some weird twisted way, if Garling, because he was the one that found out somehow that the Davy clan was on God Valley, because that was the information last chapter that he relayed to the Gorosei in telling the Great One, Emu, of this discovery, and that it was truly unexpected. So clearly there's probably a relation from Davy D. Jones and Emu as well. Not only Joy Boy, because we know Joy Boy was considered, at least through Vegapunk's message during Egghead, that he was considered the first pirate. So it's just Davy D. Jones was probably in that same era. At least I'm assuming. I don't know. My mind is spinning. I'm not, going to sit here. This is a chapter review. I'm not going to, we're going deep, obviously, right now already, but I'm not going to try to figure out this whole lineage thing for every character. It's just too much right now. But it just makes me think of Shanks and Teach and their connection. Now they're both living on God Valley. He's cooking. This is peak. I'm absolutely loving this right now. But we talk about the fact that Harold brings up, like, are you telling me that the Navy, the government staged this whole situation to lure Rox in because of who he truly is? And he's like enemy number one of the government at this time. And Rox is like, no, the Celestial Dragons, basically the fact that the Celestial Dragons are actually there, they wouldn't want Rox actually showing up to the island. That would be really bad for the Tenryubito. And it's always about their safety, prioritizing them over anybody else. So they wouldn't willingly put all of the Tenryubito in potential harm's way by luring Rox there. Or I'm shocked right now. I'm getting his name wrong, so it's Davy D. Zebek. So I guess it's not even Rox anymore. Like, that's like his fake name. So I'm just going to call him Zebek, I guess. So we'll switch it to Zebek. But he's talking about that they just made a mistake, that taking Shaki was actually their biggest blunder, because taking Shaki led to him ultimately finding out where they were for him to want to return to protect his family and the Davy clan. Because Rox even talks about, it feels like destiny is pulling me in, dragging me back to the island. And this is something, Zebek says here that as long as he can get his wife and his kid to safety, he'll be at peace with whatever happens. And this just, Rox is such an interesting character because even though he has this massive, crazy, audacious dream, he is still, we've heard him, he's so charismatic. He can get people moving. His relationship with Harold was super interesting, and he made great points outside of being a pirate. But even here, he is relinquishing the fact that as long as his legacy and his clan and his child and his wife survive, like, he's ultimately okay if, like, however this whole situation plays out. Because he talks about the fact that he feels like luck is no longer on his side. So he has some feeling of everything up until this point. He felt luck was clearly moving with him, maybe through all the Davy back fights of getting his crew, the whole situation of getting into Marijois and sneaking out and making it out. And he's felt this presence of luck, and maybe it has something to do with the D clan, because we know Luffy is exceptionally lucky. Blackbeard, exceptionally lucky. So it's just it's very interesting that he himself has a sense of his own fate coming into this incident. And one last time, he extends the offer for Harold to lend him a hand. And Harold, unfortunately, rejects and tells him he's going to sink him right here, right now. And Rox says, bring it on. And then we cut, and we just get to see the giant pirate's ship on fire. It's just on fire. And Rox calling Harold a cowardly rat, which is what he called him in the chapter that they fought previously. So officially, this was probably the last time that they saw each other. And it's, this was my accurate assumption anyways, when Harold said that he would be able to sink their ship. And here's the result. The Rox pirate ship is totally fine, and their own ship is in flames. So it didn't really work out too much. We get to see, we're going back to God Valley. It's the explanation of the hunting the natives for sport and getting the unaffiliated nations that are rich in resources, basically just taking them for themselves. Then they reveal Shaki is the grand prize of this tournament. They can either the winner can choose to make her a wife or even just a slave. We have all the Tenryubito going crazy for Shaki, of course. Shaki just has a blank look on her face. Clearly, she's not the emotional type to begin with, so she's just keeping herself completely composed and, resigned to, I guess, fate and whatever is going to happen. We actually get to see St. Summers here talking about that he's going to make her his own personal property, because we had some other Tenryubito like, yeah, bring home the win for the Shepherd family. So obviously St. Summers is a part of the Shepherd family. And then we have Garling making his declaration of, she'll be my wife, quit dreaming, Summers. So the competition is on. Then we have the one Tenryubito with the hat on. And I believe all the way back in the Kuma flashback, it was revealed that they're from the Manmeyer clan, the Manmeyer family. So she says that Gunko, with having Gunko there, they might actually be able to take home the Clan War trophy. So does that mean that Gunko is part of the Manmeyer family? Because if they are, from my recollection, then they're saying if they have Gunko here, that they will be able to win. So I guess that would mean that Gunko is a Manmeyer. So we'll see. Obviously, the more information that we do get on Gunko, which maybe won't be until we come back to our current time with Emu controlling Gunko at the time. Maybe we'll get some more with her and Brooke and actually figuring out what the heck is going on there. But to end the chapter, we have Dragon stumbling across into a room where Shanks and Shamrock's mother is bleeding on the floor, and she's saying, can you get my kids off the island? Don't let him take them. So obviously referring to Garling, and we know Dragon, I'm assuming that Dragon is the one that actually put Shanks in the treasure chest on Roger's ship, but something must have happened where he couldn't get Shamrock also away from Garling. And that's why ultimately Shamrock is a part of the Holy Knights, the God Knights, and he's part of the Forgarland family. And then we get, at the very end, we get to see a young little 2-year-old Teach with his mom saying, you have to survive. So clearly they're already chained up because they are the special rabbits because they announce for the competition that the tourney features several super rare rabbits. They've got a brat from the Buccaneer tribe, which we know obviously is Kuma. But for the first time in 800 years, they've uncovered members of the Davy clan. And that is where the chapter ends. A crazy chapter. There's a few times during this deep dive that I've almost just gone kind of silent because it's just I'm thinking, my brain is going like crazy, as I'm sure it is for all of you as well. This just God Valley, I think I mentioned it in my last chapter review, where it's God Valley, just with each subsequent time that we see more of it, this incident shaped One Piece that we know. The current timeline that we know of, this was the defining moment for all of it. Because now we've got celestial dragons, we've got marines, dragon, we've got Garling and the Holy Knights, we've got Dragon as a young marine, we've got Garp showing up, we've got Roger showing up, and now we have Davy D. Zebek showing up to basically rescue his child and his wife to continue on the Davy clan. So this also might explain all the way back when we see Emu holding the wanted posters of Shirahoshi, I think it was Vivi, Shirahoshi, Luffy, and Blackbeard. We know Shirahoshi, Poseidon, that whole thing. Vivi with Lily and that whole thing. Luffy, he's the sun god. He's sun god Nika. Basically, Joy Boy, who seems to be Emu's sworn nemesis. So it's just, and then Blackbeard was there, which we always thought, obviously, because Blackbeard's built up to be one of the main antagonists. He has 2 devil fruits, something special about him. But what was special about him may be the fact that he is a member of the Davy clan, and Emu is privy to that information. So it's just this chapter, Davy Jones, the Davy clan, all of this, this is just bombs after bombs. This is One Piece at its best. This is when it is in full stride, and Oda is just absolutely killing it. But I am going to end it here. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that you enjoyed the chapter. And I am so excited to get the continuation of this flashback and actually see what happened on God Valley. Because now we've got all the setup. It's there. And it's time for the payoff At least I hope it's time for the payoff. And Oda does not do what he likes to do and cut away again. So I will be here regardless next week. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.